Yeah. I recently watched The Case of Christ. I'd never seen that movie before. And it's based on a true story. It's a guy, his wife, and they have a little baby girl. She's maybe 6 years old. Uh, Neither of them are believers. They go to dinner one night, and the girl chokes on a gumball, their daughter. This nurse this comes over, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a nurse," and saves their daughter, and says, and the wife and the husband, they're like, "Oh, thank you, thank you," and then she says to the wife, she's like, me and my husband were gonna eat at another restaurant today, but the Lord told me to come eat here tonight. And the lady was like, the wife's like, eyes got all big. She's like, what? And then she goes home and talking about it with her husband, like, I don't think it was a coincidence. And he's like, oh, it was a coincidence, blah, blah, blah. She just happened to be there by chance and blah, 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 all this. But that instance sparked that lady's, it tugged at her heart, because she's like, what do you mean the Lord told you to come? What does that even mean? And anyways, all that happens, and the lady becomes a believer, and the husband is so against it. He's a journalist and goes on this hunt to prove, how it's all of it is not true. And through all of that, though, instead of, they go through some friction for a while, and the lady talks to that same nurse, finds out what hospital she works at and all that. And she's like, I think my marriage is on the line and blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I've been there. She's like, just pray. She's like, just pray and have faith. And the girl's like crying, like, what? That's it? She's like, yeah. And she does that, and she loves him through all the doubt, through all of this, through all that, all this up and down they go through. And she just loves him, and she has faith, and she prays, and she just loves him, right? Her character never changes towards him, right? She doesn't like become mean or like, oh, how dare you not believe now. And through all of that and him going through his own journey, he comes to faith. And at the end, he says something along the lines to her, and it's like, he's like, yes, I did this research, and yes, we had these experiences and all that. He's like, but you know what really helped? You never stopped loving me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
She showed him the unwavering, unfailing, unchanging love of Christ. And that's something that she said to him. She's like, ever since I've come to know him, she's like, my love for you has grown deeper in a way that you can't understand right now.
Right.
And when he said that at the end, I'm like, wow, like that's what the experience should be like for people. So it's not always about pointing your finger or getting angry or, doing all these things to get back and get even all the time. Like, you never know what in that instance of you loving the other person will do to them, because they're expecting you to have a bad reaction. But when you just shine and radiate love, it's like, what do you have that I don't have?
Yeah. And the only reason they're expecting that is that's what they're experiencing from most people in the world.
Yeah.
Which we're not a part of.
That's right. In it, but not of it.
Yeah, not of it. That's right.
Yeah, so that was a cool movie. If you've ever seen it, watch it.
Wow. What's the name again?
The Case of Christ.
Case of Christ.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it 1 Corinthians chapter 7?
Which one's that?
The verse of love. The love is kind, love is patient.
Oh, the infamous.
I want to go through that right now because, I was just sitting here thinking, and I was like, I was, speaking to some folks about love, and there's, love is tough and this and that. And it's like, well, you know what? Let me give you the definition out of the Bible.
Yeah.
What Paul said love is for you guys to understand, because yes, I understand where, it says put the rod on the child to steer them the right direction in Proverbs. But as you're doing that, there's not to be any emotion You know, there's not to be any trouble in your heart. You know, you're not to let those troubles affect your heart. You're to do it out of love.
That's right.
You know.
1 Corinthians 13 starts at verse 4. This is a pretty famous verse. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoice with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. It starts with in verse 8.
Wow. It's powerful.
Man.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, man, we could do like 10 episodes on this whole chapter, but at the end of that, in verse 13, it ends with this. It says, so now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love.
Amen.
Man.
Yeah. You can have all the hope and all the faith in the world.
Yeah.
You know, you can have faith that, you know, produces billions of dollars, but if there's no love there, you might as well just call it quits, take a nap.
Yeah. Might as well burn it.
Because love is eternal. The other things are not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
powerful.
It's a good gem for a lot, for friendships, relationships, marriage.
1 Corinthians chapter 7?
1 Corinthians 13.
I'm sorry, 1 Corinthians chapter 13.
Starting at verse 4.
Starting at verse 4.
Let's just read the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, read the whole thing.
Read the whole thing.
Eat it up.
It's 13 verses.
The Corinthians, they were off the tracks, and they really needed to hear from Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, too. That's something I want to talk about. You know, if you guys love the New Testament, if you didn't know already, Paul wrote more than 70% of the New Testament. Look at how he's starting off his letters to the church. So each one of those letters are to a particular church. You know, the Corinthians, the Galatians, Thessalonians. You know, I almost want to say the Philippines.
Philippines. Philippines.
I'm from Florida, folks. I'm from Florida. Anyways, I don't know what that's supposed to mean to you, but yeah.
Yeah, he wrote that letter to the Philippines, and
check how he writes the letters. Because I'm telling you, man, these churches, they were just the beginning. These communities were just the beginning. 50 years, I believe it was like 45, 50 years after Christ's death, and they're trying. You know, they've got the way. That's the movement. It's called the way. The way, you know, Jesus, He is the way, the truth, the light, and that's what the movement was called. And they're moving forward with this, and folks are just. They're being a little, they're being dirty, and they're not dancing clean at all. Okay, they're really not understanding the blood of Christ and what He's done for them, and they're off the tracks. And instead of Paul coming forward with these letters and being so abusive and just slapping them left and right, he's like, "Yo, I'm here out of love.
Yeah,
let me try to do my best to help you out."
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're curious right now, like, how am I to talk to somebody? Paul was one rough son of a gun. And he started out those letters with love.
Yeah.
So, you know, feel free to jump into the New Testament and read what Paul had to say to the folks. Because if you're curious, you know, how to talk, how to write it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not only Jesus Christ was doing it. Jesus says we can do greater things than Himself. And Paul came after him.
Yeah.
And the Lord put him to work.
Yeah, He sure did.
And,
He sure did.
Man, that guy was crazy. So for him to love like that, he had to know Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you want help with, you know, learning how to love people, read this. Read it over and over. Read it before you leave your house. You know, read it before you walk into work. Read it when you're at work. You have somebody at work that really bugs you. Read this.